to be talking about how to turn conflict into blessing. Isn't it funny how all of us think there's something wrong with conflict? In fact, if you're like me, you probably do one of two things. One, you try to ignore it, hope it'll go away. Or two, you try to avoid it, get out of the way. But the thing is, conflict never goes away. It's always been with us. I mean, ever since God created man and woman and put them in the Garden of Eden, gave them free will, what's the first thing they did? They got into an argument over whether or not to eat the apple. And it's been like that ever since. Throughout the ages, conflict has been an integral part of our experience here on earth. In churches, there's schisms and rifts and splits. There are little splinter groups off to one end and little sects off to another end. And then the churches don't like each other and they battle each other. It doesn't matter whether you're Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or what you might be, there is always going to be conflict. It seems to be part of the innate nature of who we are and how we operate. And so we get the idea that something is wrong with conflict. And then we feel guilt. Particularly if we remember what Jesus told us. Turn the other cheek, he said. And I used to think, thanks a lot. Because it's very difficult sometimes to turn the other cheek when I'm thinking angry words, when I want to smack somebody up the side of the head, when I am so annoyed at someone and I'm trying so hard to be a good Christian and all I feel is guilt. Well, what if I told you that Jesus had conflicts as well? Yeah. Think how many times he butted heads with the Pharisees. He didn't back down. He didn't turn the other cheek. He stood up for himself and what he believed. He gave as good as he got. That's how he handled it. And think of Jesus, my favorite story, Jesus in the temple with the moneylenders. Now there was a conflict. He didn't say, would you mind leaving? I don't like it. This is my Father's house. No, he didn't say that. He went in there, took a whip, cleared the tables, and drove them out. That was conflict. And so we're kind of torn on how do we deal with conflict? How do we handle it? Well, you know, there is a way to handle it, and that's with the Lord. That's using the power of prayer. When we're faced with a conflict and we find ourselves reacting negatively and getting upset and feeling guilty, it's usually the emotions that are triggered by something that happened way in our past that has absolutely nothing to do with who took the last cup of coffee out of the pot, but comes back from something else. And so what we need to realize is there are two things to know about conflict. First, the bad news. Conflict is not going to go away. You can try to ignore it and you can try to avoid it, but if you noticed how the same issue keeps surfacing up until finally you have to deal with it? And here's the good news. We have a way to deal with conflict, and that's through prayer. See, this is what you're going to do. First, you pray for the situation of the person. It isn't a prayer, God change them, which is an easy prayer. Oh, God, just make them a better person. No. It is a prayer for the situation and how you feel in it. Tell God how you're feeling. Ask God to show you where these feelings are coming from. And acknowledge that maybe they're coming from someplace else in you that has nothing to do with the present situation. Then ask God to mediate between you and the person or the conflict. What I like to do, if I've got a conflict with a person, I like to sort of imagine that here I am and here's that person and I've decided we must confront the issue. And I picture Jesus standing between us, so that everything goes through Jesus. All my words are filtered. All the stuff that comes back to me is filtered, and so my feelings are different than they would be if they weren't filtered. And then I pray for blessing to come out of this conflict. So that's what we're going to do this month. We're going to look at some of the conflicts in your life, and we're going to look at some really practical ways to deal with them and bring blessing out of the conflict.